Okay, everyone, this is Gokhan. Here we have a stage for practicing the dynamic, kinematic, and the static rigid body. Here the shapes, the first one is the dynamic rigid body. As you can see, DYN, I'm scrolling up. Here it's saying the dynamic rigid body. The green one is, as you can see, it is KNM for the kinematic rigid body, and here it is saying that it's kinematic rigid body. And the blue one is STD for the static rigid, but actually it's better for STC for static. Okay, so let me just show you the very first difference in between these two. Once you build a static rigid body, you have an option to select the shape type as original. So if your shape is loft or lattice or something else, so it can just grab its physical look, a cage look of the dynamic rigid body. Sorry, this static rigid body, but that original option is not available for the kinematic as well as the dynamic rigid bodies. Okay, this is the first difference. The second difference is, now I'm just going to put here a P bump. Okay, this is the P bump. I'm just going to select this P bump properties as having the strength as, let's say, 12. What I will do next is I will just bring it in here, and I will just select the bodies. Here's the dynamic rigid body, here is the kinematic rigid body and the static rigid body. And now I'm just going to open the multi-object editor. Okay, this is a warning message because I'm selecting different sort of objects, that's the reason. Okay, what I will do now is this. I select one by one. I select here the forces. I add the P bump here. As you can see in the dynamic rigid body forces, the P bump is available. I select the P bump for the kinematic rigid body. I select P bump for the for the static rigid body. So for two of them, P bump is available. Okay, so once we play the animation, at 30th frame only one of them has vibrate. Okay, let me increase the strength of the P bump so we will see the actual effect. Okay, let's just make it 30. Okay, so the P bump is going to be blast in the 30th frame, and it will blast for 5 frame duration. Okay, so look which one is going to move. Playing. Okay, only the red one has moved out from the stage. The reason is the dynamic rigid bodies are being affected in a sort of collisions and any sort of forces, but the kinematic rigid bodies and the static rigid bodies are not. So here I have applied a force. What is meant by collision is this. Okay, now I select my kinematic rigid body. In the 0th frame, it's in the position. In the 20th frame, it still stays in the position. In the 40th frame, okay, now in the 14th frame, it's going to hit the static rigid body, and in 60th frame, it's going to hit the dynamic rigid body, and in 80th frame, I'm just going to place it back in here. So let's see what's happening. I'm playing the animation now. Okay. As you can see that whenever the collision happens with the static rigid body hasn't been affected like a ghost. But the dynamic rigid bodies are being affected from the collisions. That means that if two dynamic rigid bodies hit in each other, or if a dynamic rigid body hit on an static or the let's say a kinematic rigid body, they are being affected. So let me just show you what does it mean. I'm just going to clean this mess out. Okay, delete selected keys. Okay, what I will do is this. I'm just going to make a copy on it. I'm just going to reduce the size of the box. As you can see from here, even I reduce the size of the box, the rigid body cage is something huge. What to do is just you need to bring it in here and say regenerate, so it's okay now. I'm just going to move it on here, and okay, I'm just going to make 2 copies. So I'm just going to move it a little bit more on here. That's good. So when I play the animation now, hence I haven't thrown any force on here. There is gravitational force. So what will happen that they all fall on each. Let's see what will happen. So this is how it happens. What if I have just dragged them, okay, slightly to the side? Okay, I'm just going to throw it from the front. Okay, I just throw them slightly the side of it, and let's see what will happen now. Okay, perspective report. Okay, let's see what will happen now. As you can see that only the dynamic rigid body was just shaken because of the fallen dynamic rigid bodies. Okay, the first thing is dynamic rigid bodies are being affected from any sort of force and any sort of collisions with any other dynamic, let's say, the rigid bodies. Okay, let me just delete these ones. I don't need them anymore. I have already shown you that the kinematic rigid bodies are not being affected from the forces. So kinematic rigid bodies are able to move by defining the frame rates, as I did before. So as you can see that it was just moving in before. So as I had shown you before that the kinematic rigid bodies are able to move by using the frame scales. Now I'm just going to show you the one final thing. We are able to move the static rigid bodies as well, like moving the frames of the kinematic rigid body. Now watch this. I have set the frame as 0, I have set the frame as 20, and I set the frame as, okay, let's say 60, and I'm just dragging it in here. Okay, so let's see what will happen. Okay, let's play the animation. The dynamic static rigid body is passing inside of all of those rigid bodies, but as you see that nothing has affected. The reason is if you define an object as a static rigid body, even if that static rigid body visual is moving, its cage is not moving at all. So let me just show you another thing. Okay, I'm just going to not this one. I'm just going to define this one in here, one copy. I'm just going to scale it down, and again let's say that regenerate. Here it is. So from the front look, I select my shape, and I'm just going to make copies in here. Okay, 2 copies. That's good. So perspective viewport, and now let's see what will happen. First of all, these dynamic rigid bodies will fall on each, but when the static rigid body moves, the magic will happen. Let's see what will happen. Okay, now they fall. The static rigid body moved, but as you see that this object is still in air. That's the reason is, hence the visual of the static rigid body had moved, the cage of the rigid body hasn't moved. So that means that if you define something as a static rigid body, in all the movie it will stay as a static rigid body even if you had moved its visual. So these are the main differences between the dynamic, kinematic, and the static rigid bodies.